recording.
And we're live. Lower than the recommended bit rate. Oh well.
Oh no, we're gonna be all blotchy and
You're listening to the Verhoeven Effect podcast. I'm Colin,
I'm Nathan.
and we have a very special episode. We have 2011's Drive, which is not really a unheralded movie or a movie that needs to like special interpretation, but this has a very specific place in my heart and stuff like that, because this is one of my favorite movies of all time, and I've only ever seen it once. I only saw it in the theaters, and to me, in my mind, it was like the perfect movie, and so I never watched it again because it was a perfect
Just remember this moment. You know.
movie. But I've listened to the soundtrack like 100 times, so it's
Yeah.
I don't even listen to CDs anymore, but the like 6 CDs in my CD changer, one of them is the soundtrack to Drive. So
It introduced us to Kavinsky and
yeah.
some of the other stuff.
So yeah, I just thought that was. One time I tried to word this on Reddit, like an ask Reddit, because it seems to be like the stupidest things, like what's the worst movie of all time, and it gets like 1,000 or millions of hits and stuff like that, and it's like the most boring question ever. So I tried to form it in the specific thing. I was like, what's a movie you only watched once because it would like ruin it if you ever watched it again? It was too perfect, and then of course I couldn't fit that correctly in a one sentence and question because
Yeah.
Ask Reddit loves to like, no, it needs to be in a phrase of a question. I was like, well, there's a question mark at the end, and it's asking a question.
Yeah.
Anyways, so we just get to do it here. Nathan, do you have a movie you've never watched again because you didn't want to ruin it in your mind?
I really can't think of one that I did that with. Let's see. That was weirdly enough another movie with Ryan Gosling. I've only seen Blade Runner 2049 in theaters.
Yeah.
And I really liked it, but it's like I don't need to revisit it. I know what it is. But interesting, I've watched Dune 6 times. And I've watched Prisoners and a bunch of other movies that guy did a lot, but
Yeah.
I've only watched Blade Runner in the theaters with Dad.
Really?
Yeah.
That's the only movie I've ever seen in theaters twice.
Oh, okay.
Because I went and saw it like an early screening, and then I was at Drill, and I went out with a couple of buddies to go see it at the IMAX theater nearby. So,
Oh, okay.
uh, so like, yeah, I'll see this in IMAX.
Yeah, that's
Which,
how I saw it too. Was in IMAX.
it's such a great movie. So,
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, but I also say like I haven't seen it since then. I haven't actually watched it on like DVD or anything like that. And also like I really love The Arrival, and I haven't watched that again, although I meant to. Although it does have kind of a convoluted ending that I just kind of like conveniently forget about.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it's kind of those movies. It's like, oh, this is really cool to a point, and then the ending kind of, okay, I get it. I know it had to. I understand how it fits in with the rest of the story, but I don't like it. It's a weird downer. It's like, okay, I get it.
But I also see, so this movie I like watch the soundtrack or listen to the soundtrack a bunch, but also I probably watched the trailer like 50 times. Like, this looks cool. I want to see this. And then I liked it in theaters. Nathan, do you have a history with Drive?
I watched it because you recommended it to me once, and I liked it. I like these like craft films because to me, Drive is an art house film that works. That's
Yeah.
how I put it in my mind. Is like there's a lot of like quiet passages. This is not an action movie.
No, this is
If
a
you watch the
bringer
trailer,
movie. There's a lot of silence. You have to bring this. You have to bring the narrative to the movie because it's not bringing it to you.
yeah, it's kind of you have this blank slate character, who's I don't know. I still have never been able to figure that guy out. Where he's supposed to be as a character. Like, is he a sociopath that wants to be normal, or is he someone who had a very violent past and like this is the only world that makes sense to him, but he wants to be normal? I never could rectify it, but I do like the movie. It takes me back to like the way they do the soundtrack in LA at night reminds me a lot of Thief. A
Yeah.
lot of those kind of long scenes of people doing things. And, Los Angeles looks like a cool place in this movie.
Yeah.
In the day or the night, Uh, but yeah, I watched it once on your recommendation and then once for this show.
So we both saw it twice.
Yeah, we've both seen it twice. I've tried to watch other movies that this guy did. I haven't seen any of the Pusher movies, the trilogy from his original stuff, but I tried to watch the Neon Demon and hated it. I was like, well, this is just gross. I'm not into this. Whatever this is, I don't like this.
Yeah, Neon Demon is a movie I say is like, this is a well-made movie. I absolutely do not like this movie.
I turned it off. It was one of those I paid for halfway through. It's like, I don't know. There was something that I'm not going to go into it on the podcast, but there was a lot of disturbing things that happened in it, which I expected. But then it just kind of crossed this line of like, okay, this is icky. I'm just checking out.
And there's
people shooting each other and stuff. I'm like fine with that, but like just real horrific violence against women and then really gross sex, like implied stuff, almost becomes David Cronenberg-ish shit points. It's like, well, this is gross.
Yeah, and because it logically doesn't make any sense. Like, how is this a means to an end? And it's just because this guy kind of makes dream-like movies anyway.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like the opposite end of David Lynch. It seems like this is unnecessary.
Yeah, I don't need this. And this movie was actually based on a book, so
yeah, I read the book, so it's a very short book. I mean, it's pretty much just like a pulp novel. It's fine. There's some stuff in the book that's interesting that isn't brought up here, but they do jettison a lot of the book. Because there you get like internal monologue and stuff like that, and it seems like here they just stripped almost everything out.
Yeah.
Came out. No, that's the wrong thing. It still says Nemesis. Drive came out September 16th, 2011. Directed by Nicholas Winding Refn. I think that's how you say his name.
Yeah.
I first saw this Bronson movie, which is a very weird movie that kind of made Tom Hardy a star. Because before that, Tom Hardy was like Picard's literal nemesis in Star Trek Nemesis as his like double or whatever, or clone. And then he did Bronson. He was like doing like these insane workouts where he had prison workouts where he had to do like 1,000 push-ups a day.
Wow.
And then he got huge because he used to be like a really skinny guy. And then he got huge, and then like he was suddenly doing like Inception and Dark Knight Rises and all these action movies and stuff like that. And so, which that kind of came out of Bronson. And Bronson's like, it's not just about him being beefy and stuff. That's a very weird character piece of this guy who makes like art in prison and is just a violent person who can't exist on the outside.
Yeah. Yeah, he's basically he's a guy who can't enjoy success. Yeah. Everything has to be tinged with violence, and you don't know if it's like, is that his personality? Is that mental illness? Is that what prison does to people? It's kind of an interesting commentary. That's a movie I could take it or leave it. Also, it's like, this is so cool. Tom Hardy was cool in it. I don't know if I got the whole, because it almost becomes Clockwork Orange-ish kind of in a weird way, like the strange prison he's dealing with and all that.
Oh yeah, well yeah, the part where he's like he has like what is it? He has like one of the prison guards hostage, and he's just using him as like a canvas to paint some art piece as they're like crying. It's like, is this guy man gonna kill me? He's like, nah, you're just his canvas. It's okay. Cinematographer is Newton Thomas Siegel, maybe, or Sigel, maybe. I don't know. I'm getting an error, so oops. I guess I don't know what this guy did for his career. I think he worked with Nicholas Winding Refn a bunch of times. So,
he's worked on a lot of Bryan Singer movies.
The
Usual Suspects, Valkyrie, X-Men franchise. I mean, not that there's any. I don't know anything about him, but he's from Detroit. So.
Oh, okay. So yeah, it's probably like Sigel or Siegel. Sega, yeah, that's right. X-Men Apocalypse, the sequel to Crouching Tiger and Hidden Dragon. Yeah, there's like a lot of good and a lot of questionable in here. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, I mean, this is a really cool looking movie for what it is.
That's what I call it. It's one of those gray blue movies. But then someone said the director's kind of colorblind.
Yeah.
So he kind of shoots all his movies kind of have that gray aspect to them.
Yeah.
Because he sees darker colors, but he says he only sees like what he calls the colors in the middle of the colors. Which I don't know what that means, but I've never been colorblind, so
I know there's like that because I think Dad's like red green colorblind, but then like stuff like purple, like doesn't purple have what is purple? Is that red and blue combined?
I would think so, yeah.
So then like the red and purple doesn't show up to him, so it's just kind of like a different splotch of, you know, gray or whatever. So it's not just red, it's other colors that contain red that also look weird.
Yeah.
I think. I don't know. Written by Hossein Amini, did the adaptation, which he kind of has middling things, and then he he created some show called McMafia. Never heard of it. He wrote like 3 episodes on The Alienists, and then he wrote like half the episodes for the Obi-Wan Kenobi show. So
okay. Well, The Alienist was kind of cool.
Yeah. Based on the book by James Salas, which is, again, it's a totally fine book. It's just like kind of like a pulp novel. I don't know like where this got grabbed from, or like really like, oh, this has to be turned into a movie. It's just like somebody had the rights and the movie got accidentally made or something like that. Then of course cast: Ryan Gosling, of course, Carey Mulligan, Bryan Cranston. That's just the top, but we'll get into who else is in this movie, because it's like almost every part in this movie is like, hey, that guy.
Oh yeah, I forgot. Yeah, some of the people that were in this movie I forgot were in it.
You know, some people are about to be huge stars, and here they're just kind of like lowly characters. And then you see, you know, old favorites like, you know, Ron Perlman. What won't he be in? So let's see here. All right, so we have Act 1. We got like just pink cursive credits, which is, you know, that's a choice. I mean, this also has like a great poster. It's just got like pink drive written in pink in that cursive, and then just Ryan Gosling in his like white scorpion jacket holding a hammer, like walking towards it, you know, just says drive. So we got Chromatics' Tick of the Clock playing, which is an interesting song because the Chromatics, like this is just a pure like instrumental track. There's no vocals to it, but like a lot of their stuff is like, you know, it has like kind of like haunting female vocals to like all their stuff because that's who their singer is. So it's weird to see them here and like the song gets picked out as just a instrumental track. Because I remember them from like the revival of Twin Peaks. They're like one of the musical acts.
Okay, yeah. The end music.
Yeah.
That just starts playing and they roll credits.
Yeah.
Like always ends up at the clubs for some reason.
So here we have Driver, who's Ryan Gosling, who's just known as Driver. That's what he's called in the book. That's what he's called here. Here they call him Driver, or they call him the Kid and stuff like that. But I will just be referring to him as Driver.
Not as pretentious as cool as the protagonist, but interesting name.
Yeah. You know, it dehumanizes him. And
yeah.
I guess I'll say this now. Like I'm probably somebody else is written on this, but anyways, my full Verhoeven effect for this movie is about the death of the American dream.
Oh, okay.
So I don't know if you have anything like that for this movie or not.
I have it more of as an individualized death of this kind of lost dark man's hopes for a normal life. torn asunder by the greed of the mob, or corporate America, if you want to
Yeah.
write it deeper than that. But he seems like a guy who was lost, not completely evil, but looking for something better. And then at some point he's just like, nah, I'm just going to start killing people. Not out of like for any pleasure, but just because it's like I can't have this stuff that I see around me. Because he is a great observer of the world, and all the observations he makes in this movie are from his point of view.
Yeah.
So there's no like close-ups of him or someone else walking and he's like looking from far away. No, it's always from his point of view. So
yeah, because my thing with this movie is like, here's this guy who he's an immigrant to this land, even though he's an American. He's an immigrant to LA.
Everyone's an immigrant to LA. Yeah.
And that's actually a thing in the book. Everyone is just an immigrant in the book.
That's also a thing in Collateral, the Tom
Yeah.
Cruise's speech. It's like, it's a city full of strangers, 25 million people that don't know each other and don't care to read it. It's like, yeah, it's kind of my impression of it.
And you have here's this guy who, he's a millennial, and he is not necessarily here. He's not overeducated, but he doesn't have a lot of things. He's extremely talented, and his hard work is exploited, and he will never rise above his position because that's what they need him to be.
Yeah.
So that's why it's the the death of the American dream. Is like, here's a guy who's like obviously extremely talented. He is in high demand, and he has no money or possessions and no life.
Yeah.
It's like, how is that possible? It's because all the old guys with the money are stealing the money from him.
Yeah, that could be. That's one way of looking at it. I just always thought he was so flawed as a person because he doesn't relate to anyone in any meaningful sense. And I don't know, but we don't know anything about his past. He's just a blank slate.
Yeah.
Like, he's obviously someone who's in some ways used to and comfortable with violence. He knows how it works. It doesn't surprise or shock him. He has no emotional reaction to anything really, except to, become very angry.
A weird thing about the book compared to this is like, there's actually like more Hollywood stuff in the book than that's in the movie.
Okay.
Because in the book, it's like the Shannon character, Bryan Cranston, it's kind of seeming like he's he's like half mobbed up, and then like he exploits Driver to try to like get success, but he's just an unlucky guy. But in the book, he just has an agent, and he kind of just does these crime jobs on the side. It's never explained why. It's not like he has a need for this. It's just something else to do, I guess. He's just bored, really.
Yeah.
Where it's here, it's like, because in the book it implies that like he's got money, he just doesn't spend it, he just saves it. Where here it doesn't. There's no implication that he has money. He's just broke. He lives out of a duffel bag. He lives in a bad neighborhood. He's got his car and his duffel bag of all his life's possessions.
Yeah. That could be part of it.
And also in the book, they don't do anything here, but in the book, there's stuff with his mom and like how he was put into foster care because she couldn't take care of him anymore. Where here, they completely get rid of that.
Yeah.
So here, so we have the chromatic stick of the clock playing. We have Driver. He's explaining his rules for like being a heist driver. He's like, I don't carry a gun. I don't do the job. Like, in a window of 5 minutes, like you get in or out, like I'm yours. So he just drives. He doesn't hold up a place. He doesn't do anything. He's just the getaway driver.
Yeah.
So it's an LA night. There's an NBA game that's being played at the Staples Center. Driver goes to Bryan Cranston, his character is Shannon, who like owns a shop and also like wants to be like own a race car team or stuff, but we'll learn that later. But he picks up like a nondescript heist car, which is basically a Chevy Impala, which is like, so it's the most common car in LA, at least at that time.
Yeah.
It's a silver Chevy Impala.
They sold a lot of them.
On the radio, you hear the game at the Staples Center. Driver picks up a couple of guys, and then like Actually, he doesn't pick him up. He just like pulls to the street. The guys are like across the street, and then they go rob the place, and then they're supposed to come back to the car. um, and they break into some place. He puts a wristwatch on the steering wheel, which that's the 5 minutes they have to rob the place. And if they're not back in 5 minutes, he's gone. Although they never pull on that threat. You never see him just like take off like while the guys are like running like no. But that's implied. He's just he's a super fit. He's got like a just a little wristwatch that and we don't that wristwatch could be something, or I don't know. You can imply what you want there. Because in the book there's something about like his father's straight razor is like his one possession he has of his father, but I don't know. He just has a watch that. And it's just like an analog watch with like like the 3 little dials on it. One of them's a timer.
Yeah.
I've never used any of those watches before, but
I have a couple. They're pretty cool.
Like not the ones with like the multiple dials, where it basically makes the watch look like a tachometer.
Yeah, I got a Tissot like that. I just like the movement of the watch and the little dials.
Yeah.
This Tissot is who makes the movement for Rolex. So if you can't afford a Rolex, which I can't, buy a Tissot. And then because I have a bunch of different watches, but then the Apple Watch kind of subsumed all of those because it's like way more useful. Like, these are cool, but
driver puts on a police scanner and then also turns up the NBA game volume. Driver opens up the back door as one of the robbers comes out, and then like they wait for the last guy. Then the last guy finally comes in after like being like slightly delayed, and then they take off. He immediately like hears a description of his car like on the police scanner. It's like, oh, that was quick. So then he like parks the car and turns the lights off, and to sneak around a cop car.
Yeah, he like parks behind a semi that's on the street or something.
Yeah. And then he ends up like behind the cop car for like a bit. And then like they go on a bridge and they get spotted by like the helicopter, like the helicopter.
Yeah.
And so as soon as he gets spotted and hears it on the radio, he just like hits the gas, and then he's like able to park the car under an overpass, and then like a helicopter gets sent off to go chase another call and then goes away. What's great about this scene is like none of the guys are talking.
Nope, because completely quiet.
Yeah, they're just like in awe of him. He's not making it. He's just kind of like biting on this toothpick, and you see him kind of like, I don't know. This is like Ryan Gosling is great, is because like he says nothing and you imply everything about it. You see him thinking, and like I don't know like the magic what magic's going on here, because you can imagine it's like, well, everything they're doing here is cool and cheap. And it's like, why can't a cheap production just make this? And it's like purely probably the quality of the acting, and like the directing and like the composition of stuff, because it seems like this is a very cheap and effective chase scene, but like you can't just hand this to like anybody and they'll be able to make this. Somehow there's just magic at work here that is so efficient.
Yeah, I mean it's just good camera work. There's no explosions. There's no real action other than driving a car fast, which we can all identify with. And, and I assume this car he's driving probably has the tires and stuff, because there's little things that happen. Like when the police car starts chasing him in a later scene, he just out turns it.
Yeah.
Like it has to stop and go in reverse because it couldn't make the turn. It's like, oh, because this guy either knows exactly what he's doing or the car has very good tires.
Yeah, like it
on. Yeah.
In the book, they like go into more detail, but like he specifically gets like nondescript cars like this, and then they juice up the engine, they put better tires on, but like for all intents and purposes, like from the outside, it just looks like a normal car, everyday car, but it does have like some get up and go to it that you wouldn't expect out of it. But like the great thing is like, so the guys in the back, like they're scared for their lives, but they aren't saying anything. They're like, normally this would be time for like, all right, this is where the dialogue would explain things. Like, yo, they'd be yelling at the drivers like, we gotta get out of here. It's like what the fuck are you doing? Like, go. But like, no, none of that is here, and it's great for it not being there.
They hired him for a purpose, and he's doing his job. We're just in the back with our ski masks and bagfuls of money being obvious, and
um. So yeah, all you get is just the sports radio and the police scanner. It's like, and like the camera basically doesn't leave the car. It's all like his point of view, from the point of view from the car too. They end up at a stoplight across from another cop car, and then like they hear like a call come in, and so he guns it, and he gets into the Staples Center parking lot, and he parks the car just as the game is ending. So then there's just a wave of people coming out, and then he gets out of the car, like reverses his jacket and kind of hangs it over his shoulder and just casually strolls away.
like puts a ball cap on too that would show he was a fan of the team.
L.A.
Yeah.
Which I'm not sure if it says who's playing, because maybe the NBA wouldn't let him, but I think it was supposed to be like a Lakers Clippers game, so it was just like LA would work either way because they're both in a Los Angeles team. Yeah, and he just strolls past the cops, and that's it. And then we get more credits again. Here it's like, like Ryan Gosling and stuff like that. You get shots of the kid, shots of the city, which LA looks cool at night with all its lights and everything. And then we get I'm not sure if it's infamous, but the great Kavinsky's Night Call is playing. Yep. And this is my introduction to retro new wave.
Yeah, French new wave or French retro synth music or whatever it is.
And we got a bunch of mix of shots of like the city, but we have Driver. He's driving around in his 1973 Chevy Malibu.
Actually, according to Ryan Gosling, it's a 72 because he built it for the movie and then he kept it. He like actually still drives the car.
Yeah.
Which is interesting.
Yeah, apparently he restored it himself, which is fun because I'm not sure. I mean, he did a lot of like he's kind of more known for this time for like the kind of like romantic roles he was doing. So I'm not sure,
this is the guy from The Notebook at this time. Like, oh, I want to see him in his movie. And it's like, yeah, I don't think this is going to be the one you want to see him in. So.
Because I don't know how big it was at this time because it isn't really necessarily like this is like they said it like this movie like cost $15 million, which if you kind of look at it from the overview, it's like, okay, that makes sense, but like the cast seems like a lot bigger than like what the movie actually is. But yeah, apparently Hugh Jackman was slated for the star role, and like I don't know how this movie would work with Hugh Jackman.
It wouldn't be as cool. I mean,
also like the way the character
Hugh Jackman likes to act a certain way, and you expect a certain thing from Hugh Jackman, where it's like, yeah, Ryan Gosling, this is him acting. It's just like staring into the middle distance. This thing.
Yeah, because like it's like really the insistence of his character to strip away almost all of his dialogue is what makes this movie like work. Which I don't think Hugh Jackman would do. Like I think he would just end up being like another swordfish or something like that.
Yeah.
So yeah, he lives in like this crappy apartment. Although like in daylight, like it looks like a fine apartment. Like it's like, yeah, what's this thing cost? Like $3,000? Like how's this Denny waitress paying for this place? But there's a lot. LA's big, and there's a lot of really bad places that are probably cheap to live there.
Yeah.
But as equally as there are like, $1 million homes that are one floor.
You gotta remember the average income in the U.S. is like somewhere around $50,000. So,
but yeah, in the book it explains that he's doing this on purpose. He just likes he lives out of a duffel bag, and he lives in just nondescript kind of like places that are like seem to be seedy, but like he does that on purpose just because it's like kind of entertaining for him.
Yeah,
it's like stuff happens here. Like he could just live out in the suburbs and have nothing happen, but he wants to be close to the action for some reason. Or just be in earshot of it, because there's also a lot of him just like avoiding things.
Yeah.
Which could
well,
go
they
to
said when they shot this movie, they went for a lot of drab looking buildings.
Yeah.
And a lot of like the stucco buildings that kind of dominated LA in the 80s and 90s, because they didn't shoot like a lot of the new stuff except for like the aerial shots.
Yeah.
So it doesn't look like a nice. This reminds me more of like 48 Hours than like which that was set in San Francisco, but
yeah.
which is funny to think about the seedy side of San Francisco. What's that where the houses only cost $10 million, but different time.
Driver meets Irene in the elevator, or they just kind of cross paths. You see him cut cross paths once before. Then we see Driver's dressed up as a cop, and he's on set. He's a stunt driver. Shannon, played by Bryan Cranston, is his handler, and apparently gets half of Driver's money because he said, "Yeah, I got you this new stunt, but remember, I get half of it." So this sets up where it's like, okay, he does all the work, he takes all the risk, and he only gets half the money.
Yeah, it's jokingly implied by Shannon later that they have been in a parasitic relationship for a long time.
Yeah.
But it's like, oh, I think you really are. But, he writes it off as a joke. Like,
Driver puts on this weird like rubber mask that's like it's like a double for the main actor or something like that.
Yeah, who's that supposed to be? Was there
I don't know.
He kind of looks like the guy from the guy that was in that movie we talked about not too long ago, Southland Tales.
Oh, The Rock?
No, the other guy. The guy with the twin it's his twin self.
Sean William Scott?
Yeah, it kind of looks like a bald Sean William Scott, but I don't know.
I guess.
I don't think it was meant to be anyone because then they'd have to probably pay likeness rights. But it was a weird looking mask.
Oh yeah. Because I thought it was supposed to be. I thought like the person was supposed to be bald or something. Because I was going for like, is it supposed to be Vin Diesel? But like, I don't think Vin Diesel's working a cop show, so I don't know. Like, because I don't think it's a movie. It seems like it's supposed to be a show, so I don't know. Again, it's not really important here. It just shows that we have a setup for a stunt, and he rolls the car over, he's okay, and it's like, that's Hollywood. But it's basically like that's the Hollywood they can afford, which he doesn't even like do a stunt. He kind of like, there's an air ram under the car, he just kind of rolls it one way and it flips the car, so he's not even like driving it expertly. That's fine. Yeah, but again, this is it's kind of a deceptive action movie, because it absolutely isn't. Like, if this movie even got sued by someone because they thought it was going to be an action movie, and there's like literally like 3 action scenes in this movie.
Oh yeah, I remember that.
And then we see Driver go into the grocery store. He sees Irene and her kid there, and he avoids her, but then he like kind of stays within earshot and like listens to them talking. I don't know. There's also a thing. There's probably a theory about there. I haven't looked it up, but like, do you think Driver has like some sort of autism, or do you think he's just avoiding people intentionally because of his past life or whatever?
No, his behavior doesn't indicate autism. It indicates an attention to detail. Yeah. Because detail, order, and plans represent a kind of control that he feels safe with. But I don't think he trusts anyone because of whatever happened to him.
Well, there's times when people like try to warm up to him and like are talking to him, and he doesn't seem to read social cues that like, oh, you need to join in this conversation. He gives very strict, like straightforward answers with no embellishment.
Yeah,
doesn't understand sarcasm.
Yeah, I mean, there's other people that have those things too. They're called sociopaths. That really just like, I don't understand human feelings, So you never know with this guy. It could be a little less innocent than what you think, because most autistic people, as I recall, are not like incredibly violent at the flick of a switch. They could be. I mean, anyone can be if you put their back.
Like, I don't think he's fully autistic, but you could put Asperger's or whatever. But there just seem, but I don't know if that's like a, some kind of mental defect that he can't read emotions, or if that's just a past trauma that's like, emotions lead to bad things, and so I won't have them.
I kind of write him down as a guy with a dark past.
Yeah.
Has no reason to trust people, and the people he does trust are screwing him, and he kind of knows it, but it's like, well, these are the friends you have, so.
He's gonna leave the store, but then he sees that Irene's having car trouble, and so he gives them a ride and takes the groceries inside. And driver gives the kid a toothpick, and then Irene and driver talk a bit, which is mostly her saying something, and he kind of just smiles at her for like an awkward 2 minutes. Because when you look like
serial killer.
Yeah, when you look like Ryan Gosling, you can get away with not saying anything.
Yeah. I can't do a Ryan Gosling very well. I stare into the middle distance when people talk to me. I've explained to my boss at work many times, like, hey, I've been watching those videos on YouTube about how to act around other people, so I'm trying here. Got to give me a break.
To see the kid's dad is like in prison. It's Benicio's the kid. I'm not sure if like I mean, I think she has her wedding ring, or she has some ring on her finger. I'm not sure if they're still married or not, or if it's just kind of like a, because that's the whole thing here, where it's like, it seems like she wants to get away from him, but she can't.
Yeah, I like this guy that doesn't talk and just kind of stares at me. This seems preferable to someone in prison.
He says he's a stunt driver for movies, but he just says it's part-time. And he works in a garage at Reseda. And there was something earlier where like Shannon says something like, have you got any sleep? You look like shit. Because he's not sleeping because he's working a day job as a mechanic, and he's doing like runs at night, and he's also being a stunt driver. So he has no free time, but apparently is still broke. Again, multiple part-time jobs still can't make in America. The death of the American dream. And then Shannon is meeting with Bernie Rose, is played by Albert Brooks, which is
great.
Yeah, this is like his most interesting role he's ever done.
I never thought of Albert Brooks as a bad guy. Like, oh yeah, he could do that too.
Apparently he was in character for his role when he auditioned for his role, and like basically grabbed Nicholas Winding Refn by the throat and pushed him up against the wall.
Nice.
As like his, that's his audition. And also I didn't realize he shaved his eyebrows to have even less emotions for his character, which I didn't realize he did that.
Oh, that's okay. Yeah, I guess it would work. Now I'm going to have to watch the movie again. It's like, he doesn't have any eyebrows. That's crazy.
Yeah, because he said like, I guess he thought like his eyebrows were gave off too many expressions, and so he just shaved them off, so he looks like he has even less expressions. And it's kind of effective, especially when you're trying to completely reorganize what people think about you, which is like you're just like the weird jokester guy in movies.
Yeah.
He's not. I mean, like he's fine, but I wouldn't say he's like that funny in his movies where he's supposed to be funny. He's just like,
really good in this.
Yeah.
Well, he's kind of a good counterpoint to the Ron Perlman, who's like the over the top, I'm obviously a gangster.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I don't know. You can also see a flip side from Driver too, where it's like Bernie is a guy who's like needs to be in control of things, and he's holding everything together until he's not, and then he becomes very violent. So there's kind of like a mirror there, but
yeah.
But like Driver seems to be more reactionary, so he seems to have a more moral high ground, whereas like Bernie is just killing people. Is like, well, this is the means to the ends, and Driver's just killing people because he has to, not because he wants to.
Yeah. Well, he seems to have a kind of a weird morality about him, whereas Bernie is just a gangster. He's just like, I just do whatever I have to do to make money. Shatter a guy's pelvis with a sledgehammer, kill a woman and children. Yeah, it doesn't matter.
Well, that's usually Nino's thing. Like, Bernie, like when he has to do that stuff, it's like he shouldn't have to doing that stuff. That's Nino's job.
Yeah.
And so he gets angry when he has to do it.
Yeah, I'm the clean hands guy here.
It's like when there's like like a boss who like knows how to do the job, but like they can't convey how to do things to the new guys, and then they just end up doing everything themselves and yelling at everybody. It's like, why can't anybody do my job? I'm supposed to be observing. I'm the boss.
I worked hard to get to this observational plinth, but apparently you didn't work hard enough at communication.
So like he's making a deal with Shannon where like they're gonna buy a used stock car and start a racing team. He says Driver's the guy, basically implying that like, hey, he's super talented driver, detail oriented, all that stuff, and nobody knows who he is. Like we put him in the right spot, we're gonna be millionaires.
Yeah.
And of course we know that's never gonna happen, but it's a nice dream.
No, it's like this isn't. I have no indications of happily ever after so far in this movie.
Nino shows up. It's Ron Perlman. He goes around and says a bunch of not racist things. Just he's very a crass person,
vanity laden. Ron Perlman talking like a street hood. Like, yeah, you gotta like those motherfuckers, right? But it's delivering dialogue like just an out of control guy.
Yeah, he's looking at the NASCAR and he's like, "What's this $300,000 piece of shit? No, well, over here, this is the pussy magnet."
Yeah.
And Bryan Cranston's like, "That guy couldn't find pussy in a whorehouse."
Yeah, he's a really vulgar, awful guy. Interestingly, playing a Jewish guy who wants to be a gangster.
He wants to be an Italian gangster.
Which he told the director, he's like, yeah, I'm a Jewish guy from New York. I always wanted to be one of these guys. So I'm basically playing my childhood fantasy character. It's just like, oh, okay.
Which is an interesting choice because it ends up becoming like sort of the crux of the plot of like, why would he do that? And it's because it's a weird hang up he's had for his entire life.
Yeah. He gives a speech about it later.
Yeah.
Which is pretty good. I mean, Ron Perlman's great.
Oh, yeah.
It's such a talented actor that was just behind makeup for so long. Like, oh, this guy's really good. I mean, he should have done other things, but
I mean, he's had a great
back
half of his career. I mean, he was in Sons of Anarchy for like 7 seasons. He's got a bunch of shows. He's in everything. So
I didn't know the guy that created Sons of Anarchy was also behind Yellowstone.
Yeah, that makes sense.
I didn't know that. I just found that out recently. 2 shows I've watched like 10 episodes of, and just like, yeah, this is good. There's nothing wrong with it. I'm just not interested in it.
Yeah.
I don't know why.
I found out recently because I found out like Yellowstone isn't on Paramount Plus. I'm like, what the hell's up with that? It's like, isn't that a Paramount exclusive show? And then I found out, yes, there's a cable channel called Paramount, and that's where the show is aired, and they have like 3 spin-offs which is on Paramount Plus, but the regular show is just like exclusively to the cable channel, at least for like in its first viewing or something like that. Because also it's like it's like 12 million views on on the season premiere, and it's like where is the show airing? Like okay, so now I learned there's a new cable channel, or it's old UPN or something like that, or maybe they grabbed up whatever Spike TV was, or I don't know. Spike TV still exists. I don't watch cable, so I have no idea.
I don't know. All I know is like HBO, you can't watch Westworld and a bunch of other shows anymore because they're going so broke. They're just burning their back catalog, selling the rights to stuff. It's like, oh, that's a good sign.
But here we have Ron Perlman, or it's implied that Ron Perlman messed up his leg, or we find out shattered his pelvis because of a previous debt. But it wasn't a debt. I guess it was just he made him mad because he overcharged him or something.
It was implied to be some kind of corrupt deal. Completely overreacted.
Yeah. And Shannon still has to interact with him.
Yeah, he's still like, hey, how's the leg? He's just one of those guys. He's like, I paid my debt. It's that Bryan Cranston low key anger acting.
Yeah, which is like a great get at this time, because like this is like they're like 3 seasons into Breaking Bad, and so it's like, yeah, let's put this guy into movies. He's a great actor.
Yeah, wow.
He can do comedy. He can do the hardest drama on television.
The most depressing show you could watch.
The most character change ever. I'm a beleaguered chemist teacher, and now I'm a drug warlord.
I'm gonna kill people in clever ways.
And tell myself it's about survival because I got to put my son through college.
Yeah, I always like the logic. But at the end, he admits he's like, I just did it because I thought I wanted to prove to everyone I could do it.
Yeah.
Like the very last line is like, I don't really care about anyone but myself.
We have Driver driving a stock car. He meets Bernie. This is a great line because, like, Driver's barely saying anything, so he's taking his driving gloves off, and he says, "My hands are a little dirty." And then Bernie looks at him and goes, "So are mine." And then he shakes his hand.
Yeah.
That's also a great trailer moment because that just like lets you know right up front, like, oh, this guy's a bad person.
He's admitting it. He's not even hiding it.
So I have that being the end of Act 1 because like we now have the basically have the plot point that like, okay, they're gonna like strike up a deal to run this new NASCAR thing, and things are gonna get weird around that. So we have Irene shows up with a car to be fixed at the shop. Driver smiles for the first time in the movie.
First time I remember, I was like, "Hey, I don't think he's done that before."
And here we learn about Shannon's talking to Irene, and he just tells her straight up of like he hired Driver a few years ago, just out of the blue because he showed up at the shop for half the wages, and he's been exploiting him ever since.
Yeah.
And he's like, "Shh, don't tell him." And then she's kind of laughing it off. And so, but he's not being sarcastic. That's actually what he's doing.
Yeah, he's kind of just like, I'm gonna tell you the truth. I'm gonna make it seem funny. Not gonna tell you the whole truth.
And I'm not going to change anything after telling you.
Yeah, my behavior is not going to change either. Exploitation will continue.
The beatings will continue until morale improves.
Yeah.
Driver takes Irene home and the kid, but they take a detour down like the LA River.
Yeah.
And here we get the song from College and Electric Youth, "A Real Hero." Just another fun kind of synthwave song, pop song that's just with extremely like straightforward and weird lyrics.
Yeah, some of those lyrics in that song is like, oh, this is just right on the nose, but it also works for some weird reason.
A real human being, a real hero. It's like, they end up like around a creek where there's like plant life and stuff. So rather than the usual just concrete river of the LA River, which I don't know if that's where that thing ends or they just cut to a different shot, but I don't know.
I don't know. It's been in so many movies. It's like it should have its own IMDb page.
A Driver and Irene smile at each other a lot.
Yep.
And they try to figure out where they stand because they know, like, hey, this whole husband thing's kind of weird. Is he her husband or not?
Yeah, the looming husband coming out of prison.
But then they have a moment where I wrote, "Holy shit, they hold hands," and that's like that's their big moment. Yeah, I mean, that's also like a thing that went towards my like this sort of like autism thing is like he doesn't know how to handle kind of like personal affection and stuff like that, because it's not like he's just going out there having relationships and having sex all the time. Like the biggest thing in this movie is they kiss and that's it. Like that's the sex scene in the movie is a kiss. We get Nino and Bernie looking over the stop car. Nino isn't impressed. Bernie tries talking with Driver. And then Bernie tells the story of Shannon where he learns that like he shattered his pelvis because he overcharged Nino or something. Apparently Bernie used to produce like schlock movies, so he was a producer. Now he's just, I don't know, a gangster or something.
Yeah, it was funny. He put the line in there. Yeah, I used to make these movies. They were garbage, you know, but some people said they were like European, which was kind of funny considering the movie.
Nino broke Shannon's pelvis. Yeah, because then we cut to Drivers out with Irene, and then here she says that her husband's getting out of jail in a week, and it's just like a minute of silence and no response.
Yeah, because how would he react to that? He's like, was this a moral conundrum?
Yeah, that's the thing. Is like, is that his response, or is he just like trying to come up with a response and he has none?
That does make it kind of fun.
Like, is he thinking, or is he like, nope, nothing, say nothing?
It's your play now, sweetheart.
There's a welcome home party for Standard,
Yeah.
which is Irene's husband, played by Oscar Isaac.
I totally forgot about that. When I saw that, I was like, wait a minute. I've seen this guy. Oscar Isaac, Annihilation. That's right. I'll go to for him.
Yeah. Well, I know Star Wars and all that stuff. He's,
I know. I just
Dune. He's kind of huge now, but yeah, here he's got a bit part. He's just a working guy. So.
I like that they did make fun of his name later. It's like, yeah, that's a weird name. It's.
We get Under Your Spell by Desire playing, which is another great weird song. I don't.
Yeah, all the songs in this movie either evoke feelings of happiness, euphoria, or lust, depending on your state of mind at the time you're watching it.
Standard apologized to everybody there at his welcome home party, which I doubt most people getting out of prison have welcome home parties with a bunch of
welcome back.
He apologizes and says he's gonna for all the things that put him in prison, and then Irene seems politely optimistic about it, but that won't last.
Yeah, it wouldn't be a point of having the character in the movie if that was going to be the case. But he doesn't seem to want to go back to that life.
No. So, yeah, I mean, he doesn't rescind. He's just like, he's put in a bad spot, because apparently he got help in prison and he can't, and now he owes money for prison protection, which again I would know nothing about, or even if that's real, or if that's just something that's in the movie.
Is it a way to exploit people? Then it's real.
Yeah,
prison's screwed up.
Yeah.
And now everyone, there's no like anonymously going back to Amboy, Illinois after your time in Pelican Bay. Like everyone knows who you are all the time now and where you are. So yeah, it's a little tougher.
Driver sees Irene in the hallway, and then they share a moment till Standard comes in and just like makes everything super uncomfortable. It's like, oh yeah, you're the guy that's been like hanging around my wife, huh? He's probably a little bit drunk and also a bit antagonistic, and probably also knows that like even though nobody knows anything about Driver, he's still probably better for her, even though it ends up going all wrong because of him. Well, not because of him, but like, I guess because of him. Yeah.
Well, I mean, he's just in a reaction mode.
Yeah, he's trying to do the right thing because he has to deal with, unsavory people all the time, but usually he's kind of at a distance. It's like, I just drive. I don't do anything. I don't set things up and all that stuff like that. So here he has to set things up, and then everything goes wrong because that's not his expertise. And then Driver's like eating dinner where he meets some guy where like he did a job with him, but Driver's very short with him, and this is like the first time we see him like have like anger as an emotion, because he doesn't get a rise much. Like he's just calm with everything. Just
yeah.
But here he's like tells the guy to shut up, and he's like, I'm gonna knock your teeth down your throat. And then, the guy just walks away. He's like, whoa. Because the guy's like, hey, man, like, we didn't know how good we had it. Because, like, now my brother's dead because we thought we could hire, like, a cheaper driver who did more than just driving. It's like, no, you were right the whole time. Which, again, the death of the American dream. Like,
yep.
Your most valued worker, you don't value them. And then when they're gone, you realize, like, oh, maybe I should have been fair.
Maybe I shouldn't have just pissed this guy off. Exploited him.
Driver pulls into his parking garage, and then like he sees some criminal types, and then he finds
guys
Driver
are dressed like Russian gangsters.
Yeah. Um, yeah, like orange Adidas tracksuits and carrying like a pipe.
Yeah, like
Not
subtle
suspicious.
guys, subtle.
Yeah.
Wouldn't have guessed.
You should have Italian gangsters that just dress up like in like tradesman safety wear, like they're at a construction yard, and then carry pipes around, and then you can beat up people, and none of them would be the wiser.
Well, that was one cool thing about in the movie Tenet. He just puts on an orange vest and like gets into a security area. It's like
Yeah.
they don't stop it. Orange vest or a safety vest means automatically you ignore that person. He's just some schlub or something. Yeah, because I wear one all day, and I could pretty much like walk into the cashier's office at work probably. It's like, are you here to fix the toilet? Yeah. Yep.
um,
I'm here for.
so driver finds Standard like all beat up and bleeding, but then he goes over to the kid first because he doesn't care about Standard because he knows something's weird here. So, this is where you can apply something with his childhood where it's like he knows in the situation that the kid needs support and not the deadbeat father that just got beat up by gangsters.
Yeah.
Well, he's not
Yeah.
a deadbeat father, but he's a, nothing good is going to come from Standard. So
Doesn't seem to be an effective criminal, I would say.
I mean, like here he learns that like he's trying to get out. Like they say he needs to do a job because they owe him for he owes them from protection in prison, and he told him he wasn't gonna do the job, which is why they beat him up. And then driver's solution is like, well, we'll do the job, and then that's gonna be the last job.
Yeah, see, that's the problem with those guys. That's why you don't do. That's why they never deal in that world of like, yeah, I'll do this. You pay me $5,000 and we're done. That never happens. Not even real life. It's like
Yeah.
no, they just once they think they have you, because once you've helped people steal something that's easily traceable, it's like, yeah, you're fucked. I mean, they own you,
Yeah.
and there's no incentive for it because they're complete monsters. It's like, well, they don't care about your family or your home. Yeah, they just want something.
Yeah, that's why I don't know, like in logic in movies, and like I haven't dealt with it in real life, but it's like stuff where it's like, well, the only way to get this money is to go to a criminal element who then have a hold on you the whole time because you just committed a crime together, and they don't care about going to jail, but they know that you do, and they'll hold that over you.
Yeah, that's why you never deal with those people. And I mean, you seldom get that deal where, hey, it's like one and done. If it's something they really want or it's just a nuisance to them, you can get that deal. But that very rarely comes along because they want to know they have guys that they can talk to or whatever. And unless you're just a complete psychopath or one of the guys randomly dies and the rest of them have to guess like, who shot him in the face with a shotgun? Oh, we don't know. Well, let's just let this lie because it wasn't for a big sum of money. Because you'd be surprised how many people died for $3,000. Like, it's not $1 million. That's where the Hollywood element comes in. It's like, no, there's been roomfuls of people killed over $5,000 in real life,
The gangster guys want Standard to rob a pawn shop in the valley, but he won't do it. Yeah, again, it's all for protection money from jail. They threaten his family. One of the gangsters gave Benicio a bullet, and so driver takes the bullet. We cut to driver meets Irene at work, and this is where she's a Denny's waitress.
Yeah.
He questions her about Standard's injuries and not sure if she's lying or she was lied to. He said like, some drunk kids beat him up.
Yeah, you can never tell what driver believes because he's like, well, it's like, okay, well, he's processing this obviously some way.
Yeah, because I'm not sure if that was like some kind of like test. It was like, I want to see if she'll lie. Like, is she a good person or not, or something like that. And at the end of it, it's like, you don't know. You don't know if she's lying. You don't know if that's what she was told or if that's what she believes.
That's what she needs to believe.
Yeah.
You can save yourself a lot of trouble by they will always lie.
It's awkward family dinner time, and they tell what's supposed to be fun stories, but it just like grows the tension.
Yeah.
But this is where you have the joke where they talk about how they first met with Standard and Irene, and he said he was like Standard, like I can't remember, like Enrico or something like that, and she's like, well, where's Deluxe Enrico?
Yeah.
You also like find out like apparently technically like it was statutory rape or whatever because he was older than her. She was like
Yeah, it
17.
always gets gross. It's like, oh, these are not fun stories. These are stories about an underage girl being impregnated. His last name's Gabriel.
Okay.
So he says, yeah, I'm standard Gabriel. And she's like, well, where's deluxe Gabriel?
We got to driver steals a Mustang for the standard job. Driver explains himself again to the robbery crew, his usual spiel, like, I just drive you 5 minutes and I'm yours. Here you meet Blanche, which is played by Christina Hendricks. Which, this is, probably her biggest time around Mad Men, too. So, it's another good get where it's like, let's get somebody popular from a TV show. Put him in here. I always feel like she should be in more things, but I feel like she isn't. But I don't know. But yeah, she's a part of the crew apparently. But and then there's the mob guy there, and he's just like angry at everybody.
Yeah.
He makes this deal. It's like he writes on his hand where it's like, this is what you're getting, this is what everybody else is getting, and it says "fuck off" on his hand. And he's like, does that seem good to you? And then like the driver just doesn't even bat an eye. He's like, okay, but we do this and like we're done. And he's like, okay.
The character's name is Chris Cook.
Yeah.
The actor's name is James Beerbury. Now I make sense why he's dressed like a Russian gangster, because he's like Albanian American, it says. So it's like, oh, okay. So that's probably because I guess like the director of this film kind of lets people like, yeah, develop your own character and look.
Yeah.
For a lot, especially a lot of the side characters, like kind of do your own thing, because no one auditions for him. He just feels them out, and it's like, oh, okay. So I think this guy kind of went with the Russian mob motif, because that's what you think of Eastern European mobsters is like, yeah, they're all going to be wearing tracksuits, and at least the low level guys. And top level guys will be wearing like really nice, cool suits that you can get made in Italy and stuff if you're a murderous criminal. $6,000 suit.
They show up at the pawn shop at the Mustang. And then also a mob Chrysler shows up, the Chrysler 300.
Yeah, Chrysler 300 that must have had a giant engine in it. Some of those did have like big engines in them.
Yeah.
This was kind of a weird. I liked the car chase, but it seemed kind of weird to me.
Oh yeah,
because I've driven a lot of fast cars and big cars, and I'll tell you what, there's no way.
Yeah, there's no way. Yeah,
turn that Mustang.
No,
they could outrun it if they had a big enough engine or a supercharger under the hood. They could not outmaneuver it though.
I mean, really, that the chase scene that happens is almost nothing. There's just like one cool shot through the back window that's really interesting because it's just an interesting framing of a. It's like, well, I haven't seen that in an action scene before. Well, I'm pretty sure there's like 300 of them in like a Michael Bay movie, but they were so cut together so quickly you didn't notice any of them.
Yeah.
So Blanche and Stander go into the pawn shop. Blanche walks out with a giant duffel bag of money. She hops in the back. I always like that driver like opens up the doors and the guys are like coming back to the car, and because this is a Mustang, he has to like put forward the front seat.
Put the seat up, yeah.
Yeah, and then she gets in the back, and then he puts it about, waiting for Standard to get back. Standard like gets out of the pawn shop, and then he's like almost immediately shot dead. As he's leaving the pawn shop, and then they take off, and then the Chrysler gives chase. It's just kind of like a standard chase scene, and then he makes the Chrysler crash by doing some backwards driving, which doesn't make sense. But again, the scene doesn't make sense if you just like compare the statistics of the car or whatever. But but the coolest thing is like when the thing wipes out in the background, they have the shot through the back window with Christina Hendricks like in fear in like the left side of the screen. It's as you see the car like careening and like hitting something and like lifting up in the air. It's like really cool.
Yeah, because they're moving further away from the action as they go instead of focusing in on it.
Yeah.
It's like, I knew what happened.
And it's in slow motion, so it's also a bit more magical because of it. And essentially, this is the other action scene of the movie, and it's about 3 minutes long. Again, this is a $15 million movie, so
yeah, that's a good scene. It's just the gangster should have had like a Camaro or something.
Yeah.
something that could have conceivably maneuvered as well as that car did. But because I know Mustangs, like if you start taking a hard corner and it feels like it's going to flip, just tap the brakes and hit the gas again. It will settle back down. Big cars have too much body roll in them.
Yeah.
But I don't know if those Chryslers are even frame on body. I think those might be like giant unibody cars too. So it might have had the lightweight to do that. Because I know if you get like the SRT version of it or whatever, it's just like it's a death trap. It's so fast. So.
Well, I like the Dodge version of that, which is the Dodge Magnum, which is a wagon version of the Chrysler 300. Which now is like almost a collector's item because people have done wild things with those, but like they didn't seem to sell that very well for Dodge, so that they just got rid of it. Do they still make the Chrysler 300?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Okay.
It's very
is it differently designed now?
Yeah, it's still a big car, but I think hold on. I think they still make that. I don't know for how much longer they're going to make them because Chrysler was they're getting rid of all their cars too. So, yeah, they still make the Chrysler 300. Ooh, what can you get with it? What kind of engine?
I mean, Chrysler nowadays just kind of seem like they're a Dodge with a nice interior.
Well, there's the thing about Chryslers. They make cool looking cars. I've always liked the Dodge Challengers, the retro 2-door 70s cars. I was like, that would be a cool car to have. I would love to have that car. Then you read the quality shit on them, and then it's like, I'm buying me a standard Fusion because that will last much, much longer with fewer problems. It's a boring car, but it's not exciting, but it's not, and it's also not going to cost me, I don't know what, $1,000 a month to insure around here. Who knows? Because I've always liked the challenge, not the Hellcats and the crazy ones, just the Challengers with like the 360 V8s in them. I always thought I would love to have one of those, but it's like, I'm not dealing with all the problems those things have. With like the shifter linkage just breaks. It's like, well, you got to put it in gear and like, what? Of course, I don't know. Ford's had the most recalls this year of any automaker, so they've even beat Tesla. But we'll talk about that later.
I forgot. Were you looking something up, or
I was still looking. The Chrysler 300 is going out of production.
Oh, okay.
Because they just want to make like mini van UV things. I don't know.
I mean,
company,
last time I knew, the Town and Country was still like the premier van, but
yeah.
Although those Ford Transits you can do a lot of crazy things with.
Ford Transits are very versatile. You can do a lot with them. I don't know if they sell them to people yet. Like, I think you have to be a business still to have them.
Oh, okay.
Maybe they sell them to people now. I don't know. Because I know for a long time you had to have a business license to have one.
Yeah, I see a lot of
people.
They
basically were sold without interior. They just had 2 seats in the front, just a metal box on the back, and you could imagine people. Yeah, kids, get in there. It's fine. It's like then Ford's getting sued because somebody killed their family.
Well, it doesn't. It seems like there's like the box van is going away because it seems like the Transit's kind of replacing a lot of that stuff. But
they don't make the box van anymore. No one makes a full size van anymore, except for Mercedes. I think you can get a Mercedes full size, but it's also you got to have a reason for it. See, the Transits are all like 4 cylinders, 6 cylinders. They can haul a lot of weight, but they're very fuel efficient for what they are. Like those old Econoline vans, those things, some of those got like single-digit mileage when you threw all the equipment in them and stuff.
Yeah.
The guys who installed our carpet had one of those with a diesel engine in it. It's like, I didn't even know they made Econolines with diesels. But carpet guys need stuff like that because the carpet weighs a ton. Help me bring that bale of carpet in. Oh, okay. I picked it up and almost fell over backwards. I was like, oh, please don't bitch out in front of the carpet guys. Just let me carry this in, Lord.
Blanche and Driver at a hotel. The score was supposed to be something like 40,000, but they have like $1 million. Then we cut to Irene as being questioned by the cops about Standard, because they found his dead body. And then here's probably like the biggest flaw of the movie. They cut to like a convenient television report that's very badly done. It's like we just got some like 21-year-old at the college to do a television report. They said like, oh, it's a tragedy. Someone was killed while robbing the place. It's like, that's not a tragedy. Also, they say nothing was stolen. Okay, now it's a tragedy.
Now it's a flawed crime.
But because they say it's like, oh, no money was stolen, but the money was stolen. It's like now things are super suspicious because why would someone not want anybody to know that $1 million is missing? It's like, oh, because it's a criminal thing. Driver's like putting on his driving gloves and he slaps Blanche, and then he starts interrogating her by just pointing very like as aggressively as possible. Where it's basically here's like, it's a hard thing to have like your main character hit a woman, and so now he's like kind of restraining himself by just pointing very hard.
It turns out she was involved in, in the setup.
You find out it was like it was supposed to be a ripoff and less money. So it's like the idea is like you get Standard to rob this place, and then Nino was going to rob them. So then he was clean hands because this money ultimately is supposed to be like East Coast mob money. Yeah. So it's if Nino robs it from a second party, he thinks that's going to like put him in the clear, but of course it doesn't. But yeah, but that's mob logic, I guess.
Yeah.
Blanche goes into the bathroom. Driver catches like a message on her phone, and then we see like Blanche get her head blown off with a shotgun.
Yeah, it becomes very No Country for Old Men all of a sudden.
Yeah. I mean, it basically looks like a Jello bowl just got exploded on top of her shoulders. Which is a very Nicholas Winding Refn thing. Is like once you have violence, you just go all out and make it as gross and violent as possible.
Yeah, there's no restraint.
It's like, let's go Italian horror movie for our violence. And then guys start breaking in. Driver punches and stabs a guy with a shower rod.
Yeah, like through the neck or something. Yeah. Well, first he's using the mattress as cover.
Yeah.
Because the guy that shotgunned the lady in the bathroom fires in at him, but he's got a mattress. So
he throws the mattress in front of the front door where the guy's like having trouble getting in, so he's able to handle the bathroom guy first.
Yeah.
Kills the bathroom guy with the shower rod because it's just conveniently the metal's like thin enough and sharp enough he can just impale him with it. Gets blood all over himself, and then grabs the shotgun and then shoots the guy who's like coming in through the front door and has to handle the mattress in the way. So now he's just covered in blood. Here he's just like breathing really heavy, and they hold on him for a long time. It's more explained in the book. In the book, his internal thought is like he's just waiting to hear like cops or like people scurrying and screaming, but like he just doesn't hear it. And so he's like, well, that's even worse because I'm in a place that doesn't even care if violence happens.
Yeah, someone's just firing a shotgun off in the hotel room, and no one's like, I haven't heard anyone screaming. That would be cacophonously loud.
I mean, yeah, they even have like the ringing sound once the gun goes off just to kind of emulate like the lack of senses and the rush of adrenaline in the scene. Again, most scenes do that, but here I draw that out of it. So I don't know if it's just me or if like, this is the specialty of a director or whatever, or just things coming together. Or it could be the editor. Who knows?
That's a cool scene. I mean, and for this movie, it's the first time like guns are used.
Yeah.
Usually in these movies, everyone's just firing randomly in all directions, and it's like, no, the main character doesn't use them because logically they draw a lot of attention. Don't want that. But in this case, like, everyone, they're using them now, and I think it's the only time.
Yeah. I believe so. Yeah. Driver calls Shannon, and he gets like a mob doctor to clean up his shotgun wound on his arm, which I don't think we see him get hit. We just have to assume that happened.
He got hit through the mattress.
Oh, okay.
That's why that's the only reason that makes sense, because otherwise it would have taken his arm off.
Well, also, I didn't know if it was like a ricochet off a wall or something, which is
I
why.
think they fired right at him, but
Okay.
um,
The driver wants to know whose money he has so he can give it back to him.
yeah, that's where the movie, it's like logical fallacy. It's like, just keep your mouth shut. Everyone's dead. I mean, you
Well,
don't know that yet, but yeah.
Well, again, it's like he's a hardworking guy. He's not going to take money he doesn't think he deserves. And of course, everyone will exploit that. It's like, oh, a guy who doesn't want money? Well, shit, we'll take that from him. But also, who doesn't want money? We can't trust him.
Yeah, this is aberrant behavior. It's like, yeah, have you met the main character?
So have that being the end of Act 2. So Act 3, driver shows up at a strip club looking for Cook.
It's one of the coolest scenes in the movie.
Driver goes into the dressing room with a claw hammer, and then he just goes up to Cook, who's sitting at a table, and he just grabs his hand and just starts beating his fingers with the hammer, and then he starts crying and rolling on the ground in a ball. And then he puts the bullet in Cook's mouth and threatens him with the hammer. And then driver gets put on the phone with like one associate of Nino. There's also just a bunch of strippers naked here for
Yeah, there's like 10 topless women in this scene. You don't even care. Like, is he gonna drive that bullet into his forehead?
Yeah, that would be some interesting violence. Just start driving in the forehead, and at one point it'll just go off while it's in his head, and his head will explode. But they didn't do that. But
I thought they might.
Yeah. He gets a hold of Nino, and he's like basically trying to give the money back to Nino, and Nino's of course is suspicious of that. It's like,
yeah,
because driver just thinks like, I have this guy's money, but Nino knows he has the mob money that he was going to take anyways, and now he's suspicious. Like, why is he just going to give it to me? So it's like, well, this guy's got to get put down.
He's got an agenda. His ethics are confusing me. And it's East Coast mob money. That makes it extra scary.
Yeah.
Because for some reason, the violence sociopaths on the East Coast are worse than the ones on the West Coast.
Yeah. I don't know. Yeah, it's Gandolfini money. He's got it. So Nino puts his goons on a mission to find driver. We cut to driver shows up at Irene's. He wants to talk to her, and he tells her like basically what happened to Standard. He tries giving her the money, and then she just slaps him. Because like he knows like having this money is a bad thing, but he's like, this is enough money. If I give it to you, they don't know who you are. You can run away with it and actually have a good life, because nobody knows who you are. But then Shannon accidentally makes that a problem. Well, I mean, I guess they would know who you are because they set up Standard, but
yeah, they'd find her. She doesn't have criminal skills.
They get in the elevator, and there's a mob guy in there. He's like, oh, like wrong floor, and then he's riding with them. So of course driver's immediately suspicious of that, and then he spots the mob guy's gun, so he knows something's wrong. And then driver kind of reaches to the back and pushes Irene to the side, and then he kisses her, and the lighting gets different here. So I'm wondering, it's like, does this kiss actually happen, or is this just his like wishful thinking and dreaming at the moment?
Well, it's the last time she's going to see him as kind of the nice guy that helped her.
Yeah.
Because what comes next, she's never going to want anything to do with this guy.
Yeah. So then he fights the mob guy in the elevator, and he stomps him dead. Like he's like caving his head in with his shoe. Which is kind of explained in the book, where it's like, why is this guy who's just good at driving and then but doesn't even engage in criminal activity other than driving? Why does he know how to like do hand-to-hand combat? And then in the book, it's explained that he's like picking up all this stuff from the stunt guys he works with, where he's like collecting kind of like hand-to-hand combat skills while doing like stunt work on movies and stuff like that.
Okay.
But here, you just have him be the badass that, hey, give him a scorpion jacket, let him be a badass.
If you're wearing them hard work boots, kicking someone's skull in from the front is a lot easier than you think. That's where your eyes are. That's where your nose is. It's just a bunch of open holes. If you're going down with the heel hard enough, it will happen.
Irene steps out of the elevator in terror, and then the door closes with him still inside the elevator.
It's covered in blood too. Of
Driver
course,
meets with
Scorpion Jacket gets smoked in this movie.
Driver meets with Shannon, but Driver and Shannon kind of fight a bit because he learns that he told Bernie about Irene, Bernie and Nino about Irene, and then he tells Shannon that he needs to leave town or they'll kill him too. So that's gonna happen.
Yeah.
Then they cut to Bernie and Nino are at Nino's pizza shop, and they're arguing about what to do with Driver, and then you learn that Nino set up Standard to steal East Coast Mafia money so he could then steal it from Standard and somehow be in the clear. This is where I learned that like Nino's tired of the Mafia not taking him seriously, and like they're openly anti-Semitic to his face. And he says he's 59 and they've been doing this his whole life and he's never gonna get ahead. They still treat him they still pinch his cheek and treat him like he's a kid. So this was his last gasp at trying to break free from the mob somehow.
Yeah, this makes sense. Steal from violent criminals. They'll respect you for it later.
So they decide they need to kill Driver, and then Bernie kills Cook to like tie up loose ends. He just grabs a fork, stabs him in the eye, and then comes over with a chef knife and just stabs him in the throat.
Yeah.
With like absolutely no feeling. Like he's just angry he has to kill somebody. He doesn't feel bad about killing somebody.
No, he just doesn't care at all. It's like, you clean up my mess now. That's what he says before he leaves.
Yeah.
And this guy's like in a pool of blood, probably like an 8-foot radius. It's like all the blood is drained out of his body. You clean it up.
Driver shows up on a Hollywood set with his bloody jacket, so he doesn't look out of place, I guess.
No, he's a stuntman. He said, I get cut.
Here he takes the rubber stunt mask.
This is where the movie gets really dreamlike and weird, but cool at the same time.
Shannon's in the middle of like trying to leave town, but then Bernie's waiting for him. He's looking for Driver. Shannon tries to tell him he's like went to Mexico or something, and then he shakes hand with Bernie, and then Bernie just cuts him with like a straight razor, just like a huge gash, and he's just bleeding blood. And he's like, and Al Brooks is just like, it's okay, it's over. You just sit down.
Just lay down. This is all it's going to be. This is not going to be horrible. Just lay down. But the whole time seems vaguely annoyed with like, come on, die.
Yeah.
Got shit to do.
We don't see him die, but we know he does.
Yeah.
Because we got the next scene is just Driver finding Shannon's like in a pool of blood. So, usually this would be a scene where like, he would have like one more gasp to tell Driver something, but of course, no, he's just dead.
Just him staring at him.
And kind of an inconvenience because he's laying against a car that has the money in it, ironically. Because so he just opens up the trunk and takes the money out that Shannon's leaning against. At least I think so. I think that's how it's framed.
That's what happened, yeah.
And then we have "Oh My Love" by Katia Raniere and Riz Ortolani starts playing. It's like kind of like a operatic kind of song.
Yeah, it's kind of incongruous with what's going on, which sort of works.
Driver grabs the duffel bag of money, and then he goes up to Nino's restaurant, and he's wearing the rubber mask, and he's like standing in like the doorway, and he spots Nino inside, and then he just like waits out in the car for Nino to leave, and then he follows after.
But that song's playing, and he's standing there in this weird mask, and Nino's in there laughing and talking to this woman like he's having a good time. It's like, yeah, these people don't care. They're having the life you want, and they just say, we just murdered a couple people, whatever. It's I'm gonna try to have sex with this woman,
And then like when they leave, Driver like rams Neo's car off the road, and they just like kind of disappears for a while. It's almost like a horror movie for a second. Because like the driver gets out the not driver, but the Nino's driver gets out of the car and like looking around. Is like, oh, nothing going on. He hops back in the car, and then like the Malibu lights turn on, and like he just T-bones the car like off a cliff on next to a beach.
Yeah,
this is L.A., so I guess there's a bunch of places like this or something.
Oh yeah, Pacific Coast Highway.
Yeah, I guess that's all along the beach. Or the beach. And then we see Nino crawls out of the car and towards the ocean, and there's like a strobe from like a lighthouse nearby,
Yeah.
so it's a very cool looking scene.
Yeah, because you wonder what that is at first, because you just see this light and it's
Yeah.
just strobing around. It's like,
Yeah, our car's just driving by, or what is this? But it's like, no, it's a lighthouse. And driver stalks Nino into the ocean. He's still really wearing the rubber mask, and we see him kind of just grab him, and like they kind of cut away, and presumably he kills him by drowning or just like choking him to death or both or whatever. But
yeah, being drowned in brackish seawater. That's fun.
looking up at a rubber mask with with weird eyes behind, uncaring eyes behind.
Yeah.
I mean, you think this is just to look weird, or is there some anonymity thing? Like he just wants to be anonymous.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think he wants to be identified by just anyone who can give a description. And I also think it's kind of symbolic of his just dehumanized nature. It's like, I might as well have a rubber mask on. Nobody, I don't relate to anyone. I don't understand anyone. I want to be loved. I want to have love, but I also want to kick a guy's head into the elevator. And sit there for 10 minutes and make a guy drown, that takes a long time to do that. That doesn't, on the movies, they like, if you hold someone's head underwater for 30 seconds, they expire. Like, oh no, they're going to fight like demons. It takes a long time for someone. That's why when they strangle people, it's like, that takes like 10 minutes. Because if they pass out after 3 minutes and you let your hands off their neck, you know what's going to happen? They're going to start breathing again.
Driver calls Bernie and he mentions the story of the scorpion and the frog, because he's got the scorpion to unpack. So
yeah, him and Donald Trump love that story.
Bernie wants to
carries the same warning from both men.
Bernie wants to meet with Driver and he threatens Irene. So Driver calls Irene to say goodbye to her. Driver meets with Bernie at a Chinese restaurant. Bernie says if he hands over the money, then Irene will be safe, but he won't be. He'll have to like run for the rest of his life. But Driver knows that's false as well.
Yeah.
Like, no, he's got to try to kill both of us. So they go to his car to get the money. Bernie stabs Driver, but Driver stabs him back and kills Bernie.
You don't see it.
No.
It's one of those weird scenes where but I think he went through his throat with some kind of knife or something.
Yeah, because I'm wondering if like it'd be a straight razor, because like I don't think it's ever mentioned in the book, but like I mean in the book they mentioned the importance of the straight razor being his dad, but here I don't know what you don't see him like he doesn't have weapons on normally, so I don't know what I don't know if he took something off of Nino or whatever. He just kind of stabs him with something that you kind of vaguely see. So
it could be a tool from the garage too.
Yeah, that's true. Because they kind of cut to like the shadow of like of Bernie just kind of struggling as he like just holds the knife into him or whatever. And then like ethereal music starts playing and we see a bad wound on Driver. And then the music stops and then we have like a tracking shot, like tracking up Driver's still and bloody body. His stillness conveys death. He's unblinking. And then a real hero starts playing again. He blinks, puts the car in drive and takes off, and he leaves the money with Bernie's body.
Yeah, the guy's just laying into just a corpse laying next to a bag full of money. And when they call the police later, it was like, we found this dead guy in the parking lot. That's all you're going to hear about.
Irene knocks on Driver's door. There's no answer. And then we see Driver driving around at night, and then we cut to credits, and that's the end of the movie.
Yeah, it's left ambiguous as to whether he dies or not.
Yeah, I mean,
but he better get that wound treated because he's going to go septic pretty quick.
Yeah, because I think like logic tells you like, oh, this guy's dead, but I love that he gets to just drive off at least, because it's like, well, this is the one thing I'm good at, so this is the last thing I'm going to do. But yeah, there's still also room for him to survive and stuff like that. But this isn't a movie that has a sequel, so it's fine, whatever you want to interpret.
Driver 2, The Staring.
Now Driver 2 is just Blade Runner 2049, because it has almost the exact same ending.
Yeah, pretty much.
Is he dead? Nope. In the movie.
Unsure.
But yeah, this is
This is a movie like Ryan Gosling picked this director.
oh yeah.
Well, because yeah, the guys who produced the movie bought the rights to the book,
Yeah.
and then they were shopping around for a cast, and they were like, "Well, I think we like this Gosling guy. What would it take to get him on board?" And he's like, "Yeah, because they're not obviously paying him scale, or they're just paying him scale, or maybe a little more, but I don't know."
Yeah.
But it's like, oh yeah, I get to pick the director. Who do you want? This guy from Denmark who makes crime movies about drug sellers or drug trades people or whatever they are in Denmark.
Well, yeah, I stopped reading the trivia. There's tons of trivia for this movie, at least on Internet Movie Database, and I found most of them kind of be unuseful. There's a bunch of trivia about like what Nicholas Winding Refn isn't. He's like, he's not a car guy, he doesn't care about like all this stuff. And it's like, why did he do this movie? And it's like, I don't know. That's why this movie's great, because he wasn't meant to make it, and he did.
Well, it wasn't really a great car movie either.
No.
It was either standard sedans. It was Ryan Gosling's like a driver's Malibu, which was lovingly restored and probably had a powerful engine in it, but was not like as popular as a Chevelle or a Nova or something like, or it wasn't because they had like a 1950s Corvette in one of the scenes, and that's the one the Nico called the Pussy Machine or whatever. And it's like, yeah, those are cool cars, but none of the people in the movie drive cool cars. They drive what they can find and what they have. Which might have been either budgetary too, because classic cars now are horribly expensive.
Oh yeah.
Because car culture essentially died in like the 90s. As far as
again, along with American Dream, it's like you have stuff like, because there was this, because it used to be like your midlife crisis is you buy a sports car, you buy your Corvette, and like I know this not really happened with you, not like this was your midlife crisis, but like you couldn't afford a Corvette, but you could buy a motorcycle.
Yeah,
so it's kind of that thing.
Nicest Harley Davidson that could. Yeah.
So there was kind of like that was the new thing. It's like, well, can't afford a sports car, but a nice motorcycle. And now like millennials, they can't even afford that. It's just like, I guess I'm gonna buy my childhood, and now you got people now they're like reprinting like old Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle toys because like we're rebuying our childhood because that's something we can afford.
Yeah. Or people want to be connoisseurs of like VHS tapes, and it's a whole stupid thing that's coming back. It's like the worst form of media. DVD was 1,000 times better.
Yeah, I don't think
it's about memories more than it is anything else.
Yeah, I don't think it's coming back. I think it's a whole scam. I know the Red Letter Media guys just did a whole thing about it.
They're talking about it already. I didn't know about that. I just heard people were buying like perfect copies of old VHS tapes.
Yeah, there was like well, I'm not sure if anybody bought it. It was that someone selling a pristine copy of Back to the Future for $75,000.
Yeah, because they didn't make a lot of those.
But like in the Red Letter Media video, they point out it's like, well, here's this auction site that's showing like bids in like for VHSs like going from like $100 to like $100,000 or whatever. And of course, go to eBay, look for those same auctions. It's like no bids because nobody wants this shit. So it's all a scam.
Oh, okay. I thought this was a thing like, because I know records came back for a while.
Yeah.
But there's actually technical reasons why records sound better if you can buy a Macintosh, not a computer. The people that make the tube-driven amps for turntables.
Yeah.
If you have $8,000 to afford that, then records sound amazing. I know a guy that has one. They do sound good. Not spending that kind of money on a record player.
Well, I know there's some research because there's stuff for like people like with sort of like retro game stuff now, because it's even though like CRT TVs are like absolutely obsolete and nobody likes them anymore because they're heavy, cumbersome, and like don't necessarily have the picture quality. But when it comes to video games, CRT TVs don't have any lag to them because whereas like LED TVs do. So there is like still, and that's how retro games were originally put on. So old games just look better on CRT television. So there was like a little moment there where like people were kind of like buying a bunch of retro 80s stuff and making like a little like turning the den into an 80s room where you have like your your CRT TV and your like Nintendo and stuff hooked up to it. And so like an additional thing that I was trying to bank on is like, well, if people are building these rooms, maybe they'll want some VHSs, because I try to put all my VHS up for sale and nobody bought that shit whatsoever. I even got like, I may have thrown them away. I can't remember because I don't even have VCRs to play more. But like, I got like it was like that re-release of the Star Wars trilogy before they did the effects on it.
Okay.
Which you can't even see that stuff anymore. Like
Yeah,
you only
that's gone. You can't find that anymore.
so there is like value to that, but like nobody bought that shit. So
Oh, I thought this was just a continuation of the NES
records.
cartridge craze and the
Yeah.
records. It's like, oh
That-
no, VHSs are better.
No, the VHS is a scam, but the NES and Atari. Well, I'm not really sure about Atari, but the NES stuff like that has a lot of value to it. There is a bunch of value to the retro game, and it's weird too because like all that stuff is like available for emulator. Like you can get all that stuff for free if you want, but like people want the authentic original experience. So
Yeah.
again, for the emulation quality of it's, you know, why emulate when you can get the real thing? So anyways, Dry.
Yeah.
Any final thoughts on Drive, Nathan?
Oh, it's a great movie. I mean, it's one of those things like we were talking at the beginning of the show. I don't know why I only watched this once, but it's kind of a contained experience. I mean, it's definitely, I wish they made more movies like this.
Yeah. I mean, I think something comparable. I mean, like Nightcrawler is kind of comparable. Like it's definitely an LA thing, but it's like it's an intentionally despicable character that's kind of interesting to watch.
No, I like Nightcrawler. I mainly like Nightcrawler for Jake Gyllenhaal's performance.
Yeah.
I don't really care for the story. But it's like, oh, I've known guys like this. Like I recognize this character type of.
Well, he's also kind of the opposite because, like, also the guy Nightcrawler is a hardworking guy, but he just but has absolutely no morals whatsoever.
Yeah, I mean, he'll do anything. I mean, beginning of the movie, he was like stripping copper out of people's houses or places and selling it. It's like, yeah, I'm working hard at this.
Yeah. And then the other movie I'd say comparable is like You Were Never Really There, which is another movie where you have to fill in the blanks.
Yeah. Yeah, that was the one with Joaquin Phoenix, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Where he's like a secret assassin, and then the movie ends with like 2 senators dead, and I was like, oh, that's weird. It's like, won't the whole country be on lockdown if 2 senators just died?
Didn't see that coming.
Also, that they're involved with like, you know, some child sex ring thing that's going on. So
yeah, there's a lot of shows like that like, yeah, that's not going to get made again. I mean, people going deep into the internet like, oh, this is all real. It's like, no, it was made up for a story. It's not. They call that the Carcosa effect. That's why you'll never see a show like the first season of True Detective again, because there's so many people that got wrapped up into this stuff that will say, yeah, that show launched me into this. And it's like, that was totally fiction. You get that, right? It wasn't some secret message that Matthew McConaughey was trying to send to you personally. But yeah.
Yeah, that's Drive is one of my favorite movies of all time, and I got to watch it twice, and it's pretty much as good as I remember, and I got to have fun making up my own stuff with it, and great soundtrack. It's a very short movie.
Yeah, it's like 90 minutes or something.
Yeah. And yeah, really, I don't know, like, what's your grasp on the cultural significance of this movie? Because it didn't, like, it made some money, but it wasn't like didn't make like 100 million at the box office. Maybe worldwide it did, but like it did have like a lot of cultural cachet. It became a lot of reference and stuff like that, especially with like the scorpion jacket and stuff like that. But like, I really don't know how big this movie was, even though it's like important to me. I don't know what other people think about it really.
Well, you got to remember this movie, like it toured a bunch of movie, you know, like Cannes and things like that. It was shown at a lot of movie what do they call those? Where they
Film
have
festivals.
festivals. Yeah, it was
Yeah.
shown at a lot of film festivals. It was shopped around a lot. Um, and a lot of people liked it. Got film critics liked it. I think when they ran trailers together for it, they made it seem like an actioner.
Yeah.
So a lot of people were angry about that. You said somebody filed a lawsuit because it wasn't
Yeah.
exciting enough.
Yeah, they're expecting Fast and the Furious.
Yeah, well, yeah, that's so. I think like I don't know, and but this one came at like this was like the fallout from the 2008 economic collapse was going on at this time. Time this movie was made, that would have been like a year and a half old. So I don't know if this was this had anything to do with that. Back to your thesis about the death of the American dream. Um, I don't. I mean, most of the people. I did a lot of research on this, and like all the reviewers said things that made sense. It's like, yeah, this is why this is a good movie, and so I didn't. But I think, yeah, it didn't. It had a disconnect with the action-oriented American movie audience, and with people who like, oh, this is the guy from The Notebook. That movie made me feel good. I'm going to watch this movie. And it's like, yeah, it's not the same character. It's um,
But also, it's also in a weird place because it's not like it won a bunch of awards or anything like that.
no, it was too violent. Movies this violent will never win a lot of awards, especially this explicitly violent.
Yeah, well, I mean, like, yeah, it's not nonstop violent. It's like 3 scenes of violence. That's
Yeah, but it's like No Country
over.
for Old Men. Like, you remember all the violence.
Yeah, but they won. They won the Oscar for Best Picture, Nathan.
Yeah, they did, but they'd been kicking around a while too. Everyone knew who the Coen brothers.
Also, like, yeah, that was produced by a major company. Where it's like the fun thing about like watching the opening for this is seeing all these credits of all these production companies that you've never heard of.
Yeah, Nutball Productions. And also a thing with No Country for Old Men, it was written, it was based on a book with a lot of cultural cachet too. So
Hey,
it kind of got
this is based on a book that nobody knew about.
Someone bought the rights to it for $3,000. I don't know what they paid, but yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's a different, like, oh, No Country for Old Men. Yeah, it's incredibly violent too, but it also has this huge pedigree before it was even put to film of being like Cormac McCarthy is like seen as one of the most important American authors of the 20th century. So it's like, yeah, anything and then the Coen brothers who are doing it, and they love violence and weird comedy. They're good at both. So yeah, that's why it got a pass. But this movie, it would, I don't know what it was in contention against, but it's not a feel-good movie, and it's not a movie that had a lot of cultural weight to it.
Well, I have to look at the 2012 Oscars because this came out in 11. Let's see who won Best Picture that year. I'm not even sure if Drive was nominated for anything.
I didn't look that up. I think it won stuff in Europe.
These are the winners? Huh. Hugo won a bunch of awards that year.
Okay, so feel good.
Best Picture of the Artist. I don't even know what that is.
I remember that, but I can't remember what it's about.
How this won Best Picture, and I have no idea what it is.
Look it up, you'll know it, because it sounds very familiar.
I like it has a 7.9 on Rotten Tomatoes, and it's Best Picture of the Year. An egomaniacal film star develops a relationship with a young dancer against the backdrop of Hollywood's silent era. Okay, that's probably why it won, because Hollywood likes to be up on its own ass.
Yeah.
It's a movie about Hollywood. Here's your Oscar.
I've tried watching some of the Oscar things or the Best Picture things I tried to watch that Banshees of whatever.
Yeah.
And it was
Colin
just
Farrell.
it was too depressing. It's like, oh yeah, I've been too dumb to be everyone's friend. I know what this feels like. I don't want to relive this.
Was Drive nominated for anything?
I haven't checked.
Oh, okay.
I don't remember in my research that it was.
Let's go to Wikipedia. They'll usually just have a whole like box section of like nominations. Here it'll probably be like, it won like the Saturn Award for Best Drama or something like that.
Well, there's a list. Best sound editing, nominated Academy Award.
It
Which
got
I
some
can see that.
it got some BAFTA nominations.
BAFTA won Best Director at Cannes. Critics' Choice. They loved it in Dublin. It won all their awards at their film festival.
Let's look at what are the other films of 2011. Oh, Red State.
Oh, that was that long ago? I almost thought, oh, Kevin Smith's back into filmmaking. Oh.
It's popular. Let's see here. We got the Thing remake. Apollo 18. Wasn't that a horror movie or something?
Yeah. There's something on the moon.
There's a Harry
Let's see,
Potter.
your big grossers were Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows Part 2, Mission Impossible Ghost Protocol, the Twilight, one of the Twilight movies, Pirates of the Caribbean, and Transformers Dark of the Moon.
Fast 5 was really good. That's a
those
great
were big
movie.
hitters. Yeah, that's number 7.
This is a bad year of movies.
Yeah, oh yeah. I think only one of those I've watched.
Drive should have ran away with this.
Probably Ghost Protocol, because I always watch the Mission Impossible movies.
Yeah, that's a fun. I think that one was done by Brad Bird, so it was fun, at least.
Yeah. I can't believe how many of those they've made.
Yeah, it doesn't seem like a film franchise that should have almost as many films as like the James Bond franchise. Yeah, this is a bad year for movies. Huh. That feels weird. I guess there's Moneyball. There we go. That's a good movie.
Anyways.
Well, it's one of my favorite films of all time, so I got to see it again. I liked it.
Yeah. It's a cool movie. Everyone should watch it.
Yeah, it's a bringer movie, so you kind of got to bring your own to it because there's not a lot of dialogue. Yeah, I never try to get that jacket because especially for my size, it would never look good on me. But I know a ton of people that like try to like, yeah, I'm Ryan Gosling from Drive. That's got to be on sale on like Amazon, right? What's that going for?
Oh, I don't know. There's a movie props forum you can go to where people make copies of those.
Was that even like a famous jacket, or they just like grabbed that off of like some Salvation Army or something? Or
that was made for the movie, I guess.
Oh, okay.
I remember I looked at buying it for you at one time. Not the actual one, but a reproduction. But
yeah, I
figured, well, I don't know if you'd want to. After my experience with my, I made that. I worked for months to make that jacket from the Nostromo. And it's like, oh, this just leads to conversations with weirdos in public. I don't want to wear this out in public anymore.
Well, I mean, around the time this came out, like, it probably lost a lot of weight, so it probably would have looked cooler on me then. Now it would not. But anyways, if you like what you heard, and how couldn't you can find us at verhoeveneffect.com, or you can go to anchor.fm/verhoeveneffect. You can rate our podcast on whatever the platform of your choice. Remember, the only thing you listen to is the highest rating. So remember, you control the algorithm. The algorithm doesn't control you. We have listener support at verhoeveneffect.com, where you can support this at a monthly stipend of either 99 cents, $4.99, or $9.99. And if you support it, we'll just do more faster, because that always brings quality. You can find us at Twitter at Verhoeven Effect. You can find us at Facebook, Verhoeven Effect. You can find us on YouTube at American Greed Factory. You can watch both this show and that show live and unedited. And you can find our t-shirts at belowthecollar.com/Greed Factory. So for the Verhoeven Effect podcast, I'm Colin.
And I'm Nathan.
Goodbye, America.